What's going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a great day. So, today we are going to be ranking the entire Friday the 13th franchise, as Jason Voorhees is one of my favorite horror icons of all time. He's up there with Leatherface and Pinhead and Michael Myers. He's up there with those three. And you might be asking yourselves, have I not already ranked the Friday the 13th franchise? I have, about 5 years ago when I first started this channel. And we all know how I feel about my old videos. I absolutely despise my old videos. I can't stand them. I would selfishly love to delete all of them. But I'm not going to because I know some of you still like those old videos. But that was a phase in this channel where I wasn't being who I was. I was trying to be, somebody I wasn't. And I'm also going to re-rank them because my thoughts have changed a lot since then. So I'm going to stop wasting time and we're going to go ahead and get into it. So in last place, we actually have Jason Goes to Hell, which I believe is Friday the 13th. Yeah, it's part 9. It's part 9, Friday the 13th, part 9, Jason Goes to Hell. Um, I really don't have anything positive to say about this movie. I think that I mean, it's in last place for a reason. It wouldn't be in last place if I thought that this movie was good and I enjoyed watching it. I'm going to be honest with you as well. I've only seen this movie 2 times. I saw it once when I was a kid on TV when they had like that Fear Fest type of Fear Fest marathons during the Halloween season. I saw it on TV, and that's not the preferred way to watch it because they hack out a lot of the gore. And the second time I watched it was the other day, and I actually watched it in 2 sittings because I actually fell asleep. So it was kind of late, and I did have to work in the morning, and I was just watching it, and I ended up falling asleep. But I ended up finishing it, as hard as that was to do. Just nothing about this movie is for me. I get why there's this movie has a cult following. This is definitely the Hellraiser 5 of this franchise in terms that it's hated by most people, but it does have its little cult, or not Hellraiser 5, Hellraiser 8. It has its little cult following, as I'm actually a fan of Hellraiser 8, but I am not a fan of this. Um just nothing about this is a Friday it feels like a Friday the 13th movie to me. This feels nothing like a Friday the 13th movie at all. And when I go to a Friday the 13th movie, I don't care about a deep, profound plot. I don't care for them to try something so different to the point where it's unrecognizable and has no connective DNA to the franchise. When I go to a Friday the 13th movie, I want to see Jason kill people. That's why I watch Friday the 13th. I don't watch Friday the 13th for these weird types of plot intro these weird type this weird type of stuff they try to introduce. I don't go to a Jason movie and expect Schindler's List for a storyline. I just want to see Jason hack and slash people. And this movie does not give you that. So I'm sorry, this is not an enjoyable movie for me to watch. If it was an actual good movie that had a good concept and it wasn't such a slog to get through, then this would be higher on my ranking. But unfortunately, it's in last place, and it's going to stay there. All right, so next we move on to Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. New York has a problem. No, I'm going to tell you who has a problem. I have a problem. Me with this. Friday the 13th, Part 8 is, well, I will say it's not as much of a boring slog to get through like Part 9 is for me. At least I didn't find it to be. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the one positive of this movie where he goes and kills the rocker chick. That was pretty cool. That was a pretty good kill. It was just an entertaining scene altogether, and it's what I go to a Jason movie for. That's about that's about where the positives end with Jason Takes Manhattan. Or more so, what would be more accurate would be Jason takes a boat to Manhattan and then dicks around in Manhattan for the last like 15 minutes of the movie. That's honestly, to be truthful, it's not even shot in fucking Manhattan. It's shot in Vancouver. Vancouver British Columbia, Canada, all the way on the other side of the fucking continent in a different country. So don't try to sit there and tell me Jason takes Manhattan. Like imagine it this way. Most of my fan base most of my subscriber base is are Halloween fans. Imagine this. Imagine you get a movie called Halloween Michael Invades Chicago and then the first I don't know, hour and a half of the movie, Michael's doing something as mundane as bowling or golfing or something and then the last 10 minutes of the movie are in Chicago. That's pretty much what this is. It's the whole movie is just Jason as well as the cannon fodder slasher victim characters just dicking around on a boat for an hour and 20 minutes. That's all this movie is. There's no interesting kills. There's nothing about this that feels like Friday the 13th except that rocker chick scene. That's about the only redeeming quality I can give this movie. Where I had no redeeming qualities about the last one, and no, not even the ending of Part 9, the Freddy Glove. I couldn't even give that. I couldn't consider that a redeeming quality. This movie does have that one redeeming quality, but other than that, this movie is absolutely terrible. I guess if I was to say one another thing positive, Jason does to me. No, I wouldn't even say that. Jason doesn't even look cool. It looks like he's wearing a wetsuit, and it looks like I don't know. I'm on. He looks like he's covered in seaweed. I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks that, but it looks like he's covered in fucking seaweed. And maybe he is. Maybe he actually is. I don't know. I wasn't on the set of this movie. I wasn't born when this movie came out, so I don't know. Maybe they were going for. Maybe he was because he was been trapped under the lake or trapped under the water. Maybe he did have seaweed grow on him, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm just gonna stop talking about this movie because I'm actually getting pissed off. All right, now we move on to Jason X. This is another one that has a cult following, and I just don't get the appeal with this movie. It's just not for me. Um, I do. There are a couple moments in this movie I like. I do like the liquid nitrogen kill where he sticks that chick's face in the liquid nitrogen and it freezes her face and then he bashes it on the counter. I actually really enjoyed that scene. That was a pretty awesome kill. But this is just another example of why I don't really like those late 90s and early 2000s slasher movies all that much. I don't really like the original Scream's okay. It's but the second and the third one. The third one's all right too, but the second one I don't like. I don't like that urban legend. I don't like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Halloween Resurrection. Some of those later Hellraiser films are pretty bad, and this is just another one of those. But this one's set in space, and the only I think good horror movie where a horror icon was sent to space was Hellraiser 4. As that movie is fucking great. I don't care what anybody says. This not so much. Other than it has has a good kill in it. And I don't like Goober Jason. I don't like when they start messing with Jason's look too much. I don't know what it is. I'm just like that. Um just there's not really a lot here that I enjoy. I can rank it over part 9 and part 8 because for one this one was a lot quicker for me to get through so I wasn't suffering as long. um I do like the way I do like the way Jason looks before he obtains the Uber suit. I do like the way Jason looks before that, and I thought that Jason was kind of scary, actually. I know that this movie wasn't supposed to be scary. It was supposed to be cheesy and schlocky, but I did like the way Jason looked. So I can give a positive there and a positive with the liquid nitrogen kill. Other than that, this movie just doesn't have a whole lot of things that align with my taste. I guess is the way to put it. Just not my. This is not my cup of tea. But I get why I don't get why people like Part 8 and Part 9. I do get why people like this one. It's just not one that I enjoy watching. I don't think I'll ever pull this off the shelf and sit down and watch it again. I mean, I might one day, but the chances of that happening are really slim. So yeah, I'm just really not a big Jason X fan. All right, so this is where we start getting into the good stuff. Friday the 13th, Part 7, the New Blood. I actually really like this movie. Um, this is, like I said, this is where we start getting into the good stuff. It does have some flaws. I definitely don't like how neutered the kills feel, but you gotta understand, this came out at the time where the MPAA was, they were slinging their dicks around and they were hacking the balls off of fucking slasher movies. And I would love to one day see there's supposedly an uncut version. Excuse me. I'm gonna have a sip of water real quick. All right. Anyway, there's supposedly an uncut version of this, and I would like to see a lot of these kills fucking amped up, like the weed whacker kill. That would have been my favorite kill if we had actually got to see the aftermath of that. Um, Unless it was just done poorly on in the uncut. I don't know, but I'm sure the footage is out there. I've just not got around to seeing it yet. But this movie is really high in concept as well, and I actually think that this is a concept that works. A lot of people think this is weird. This movie's weird, but for me, this movie's not weird like Jason Goes to Hell weird. This movie, while doing something wildly different, still has the DNA of Friday the 13th. This still feels like Friday the 13th to me. And I love the look of Jason. I think this is one of the creepiest looking Jasons, and I actually genuinely think the ending of this movie is freaking terrifying. I just the way Jason growls. When I was a kid, that fucking frightened me. And Jason never before that never really truly frightened me as a kid, like Michael and Leatherface did, and Pinhead. But that, along with a couple other moments in the franchise, actually made me feel genuinely scared of Jason. So, like I said, this is a really high concept film. A lot of people don't like the direction this movie went in. It is kind of Jason versus Carrie ish, and a lot of the male characters are really weird, and there's a really weird sex scene, and I don't know if it had something to do with most of the male characters being gay as it is. I don't know if it had anything to do with that, but some of the characters are a little bit unlikable, and I just yeah, some other than some unlikable characters and the fact that this movie is hacked to shit in terms of graphic content. This is actually a pretty decent watch. All right, so here's where I'm going to get myself in a little bit of trouble. And I know as soon as the Part 6 poster popped up this early on in the video, I'm sure I probably caused a lot of phones and computers to get smashed. But here's what you need to understand. And these are for the people that have not already smashed their computers and their phones. But here's what you need to understand. I love Part 6. I think this is a great Friday the 13th sequel. Absolutely fantastic sequel. I love watching this movie. I pull this movie off my shelf quite a bit. It's fun. It's very self-aware. This is definitely where they started taking the franchise, as I mentioned earlier, in a different direction in terms of tone. Whereas, as I said before, parts 1 through 5 are definitely more serious. This is more on the campy side. And I think that that was the right decision at the time to take this. That was the right direction to take this franchise. Because you could argue it was getting stale. I personally don't think so, but I definitely probably could have used something different by part 5. And part 6 was just a way to take it in a different direction, but still make it Friday the 13th. The DNA of Friday the 13th is still in this movie. It's still there. It feels like Friday the 13th. And Jason is probably the most deadly as he's ever been. This is probably the most deadly Jason in the original series. So that with it, due to C.J. Graham's military background and just his overall performance as Jason, that and Tom Matthews' performance as Tommy Jarvis, really these two guys steal the show. Absolutely. This movie is some of the kills feel a little hacked down, but some of them they actually do show. So I do appreciate that, and this is a lot of people's favorite in the franchise. It's either this or Part 4 that are people's favorites in the franchise. and you can make a case for both of them. I have a different favorite in the franchise that you guys are going to see later. But Friday the 13th Part 6, I love Part 6. I think it's absolutely great. It's one of my favorite slashers. I mean, this and the rest of the films that I've not got to yet either are some of my favorite slasher films too. But this is one that I just find myself enjoying all the time. So yeah, Friday the 13th Part 6. All right, so we have moved on to Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. This is one of the most hated sequels in the franchise, and it's definitely gained its audience now, but at the time, this was hated. And why was it hated? Because Jason Voorhees wasn't the killer. Who was the killer, you might ask? It was Roy Burns. Now, who is Roy Burns? Who the fuck is Roy Burns? I've never heard that name before. Roy Burns is the paramedic who worked on the scene of, I can't remember the guy's name, that offered the mental patient that was wielding an axe. That, bear in mind that it takes place at like this little halfway house for mental patients or something like that, where they're giving highly aggressive and highly psycho people axes to chop wood with. Uh, so he takes that axe and buries it in this kid's back because he came up and offered him a chocolate bar. So yeah, Friday the 13th Part 5, the entire plot was all initiated by a chocolate bar. A fucking chocolate bar. So, with all that being said, it almost seems like I'm being negative towards this movie. Not at all. I love Part 5. I think this movie is. I almost wanted to rank it first, but there's just other movies in this franchise I just love so much more. Um, this movie's got the most kills out of any Friday the 13th movie. Now, it's ironic because this movie has the most kills out of any Friday the 13th movie, but yet Jason's not the fucking killer. That might piss some people off too. That doesn't piss me off. I'm fine with there being a copycat killer. I'm fine with this movie acknowledging that Jason's dead. And of course, somebody like Jason Voorhees, at some point, you're going to have to resurrect Jason Voorhees. Jason Voorhees, I want to see as much Jason Voorhees as possible, where I'm a lot different with Michael Myers. I want to see as much Jason Voorhees as we can possibly get. But having somebody like Roy Burns, who's a copycat killer, I think just it's doing something different while still feeling like Friday the 13th. It has all the essential qualities of a Friday the 13th movie. It's got nudity, it's got sex, it's got gore, it's got great kills. What more can you ask for? Oh, it's not Jason killing. But the original wasn't Jason killing. Now I understand that was a different time and a different circumstance, but still, Jason clearly died in part 4. So this movie acknowledges it while giving us Friday the 13th fans more of what we like. I don't see the problem with this movie. I really like Part 5. I think this is a great movie. A great slasher movie. When we're talking about a Friday the 13th movie, our ceiling of quality has to come down a little bit. But you know what I'm saying. I love this movie. My favorite kill? Oh, man. I like Ethel and I can't remember the name of her son. The one who's riding around on the motorcycle and he sticks the cleaver out and it cuts his head and then she gets hit with the cleaver. He smashes the window with the cleaver and it fucking kills her and she fucking goes face first into the shit that she was cooking on the stove. Uh, I really like this one. Actually, my favorite scene is where the guy. This is one of the most unintentionally hilarious scenes. So the guy is playing a joke on Tommy Jarvis, and no, bear in mind Tommy Jarvis hasn't said a word at this point. Or I don't remember if he's spoken yet or not because he's so traumatized from the events of Part 4. He's playing a joke on Tommy Jarvis, and instead of Tommy Jarvis just like shoving it, like busting him in the chest, shoving him, or maybe just decking him one time in the face, he picks him up and fucking attitude adjusts him through a fucking table and then gets on top of him and starts punching him in the face, man. I can't tell you how many times I've rewound that scene every time I put Part 5 in. It's just such an unintentionally hilarious scene, and I just love this movie. I'm sorry. I love this movie. I know everybody out there hates this one. I love this movie. I don't give a fuck. Alright, so we have moved on to the original Friday the 13th. So, I actually think this movie is a classic. I don't have a lot of problems with this movie. But I do have a couple. I do have a couple where I do think the movie can get a little bit dragged out, as well as I don't find the final girl Alice, I don't find her to be likable as a final girl. I definitely think that this movie has a lot of great suspense, a lot of great suspense, and that's why I love the original film. Is it has a lot of great suspense. There are some good characters. There's some great kills, and when the reveal that all of this carnage and all of this mayhem was caused by this, which would strike you at first, this really sweet old lady, but she turns out to be a completely deranged fucking murderer, and she's actually genuinely scary. Where she's out in the woods talking in Jason's voice, saying, "Help me, mommy! Help me, mommy!" I can't talk in the voice that she does, and I'm sure if I tried, it would end up failing, and you guys would have a good laugh at it. And I'm just, not up for that right now. But it's definitely a creepy film. It's just what I think holds this film back is this: there is a lot of nothing happening, where we see Alice, or I don't remember if it was Alice or it was somebody else, where we see them making coffee, and we couldn't just see a little snippet of them making coffee. No, we see the entire fucking process of it. That is the one drawback for this movie, is that there's just scenes of just absolute nothing happening when there should be stuff happening. But other than that, I do deem this movie a classic, okay? There's classics out there that aren't perfect. Nothing's perfect. But a lot of people out there, they're all like, "Oh, I don't think the original is that great." No, I think the original is that great. It's just it does have some flaws. As it's a low budget slasher film too. Not that anything excuses the coffee making scene. Where like I said, we don't need to see the entire process of them making coffee. If I wanted to see the entire process of somebody making coffee, I'd go out in my kitchen and make coffee my fucking self. But other than that, yeah, this is a great slasher movie, and it's in the pantheon of greats in my opinion. I just think that some of the sequels are better. And I gotta say that my favorite kill is probably the chick in the bathroom who takes the axe to the face. That was gnarly, man. Such a great kill. All right, now we've moved on to Friday the 13th Part 2. This I've heard is a lot of people's favorites too. It's always part 2, part 4, and part 6 that are people's favorites. That's usually the general consensus. I do really like part 2. I definitely think that the characters here are definitely a lot stronger. Our final girl is a lot stronger, and this is the one where Jason is introduced as well. Um, of course, this is not the Jason Voorhees, the look of Jason Voorhees that we know. This is a hillbilly type of Jason, and he has a bag over his head. I don't know if it's a potato sack or what, but he's pretty scary. Pretty scary. And this Jason is ruthless too. He kills a fucking guy in a wheelchair, which is actually my favorite kill in the movie. Takes the machete to the face and he rolls down the stairs. That's gnarly. Um, my problem with this movie, the only problem I have is that some of the kills just don't feel as impactful as they did in the original, and that's because Tom Savini didn't return to this franchise for this movie. So a lot of the kills feel a little weaker, but it makes up for that by um, having stronger characters and having a stronger story. I really like the scene at the end where Jenny pretends to be Jason's mom. When I was a kid, I didn't understand that scene. But as an adult, I understand what Jenny was doing, and she's also studying psychology as well. As a kid, I didn't understand that, but I do now, and I definitely like most of the kills, what they were going for with the kills. I think probably my other favorite kill would be the couple having sex and he comes up with a spear and impales both of them. That was pretty brutal too. But and I know I'm not talking a whole lot about story. Like you're probably wondering, why aren't you talking about the story? We're talking about Friday the 13th here, so yeah, I'm not going to be talking too much about the plot of Friday the 13th, as we know we don't go to Friday the 13th movies for fucking plot. So yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 I think is definitely one of the strongest entries in the franchise, but it's not my favorite. All right, so If I've not already caused phones and computers to get smashed, trust me, they're smashed now. Uh, Friday the 13th, the remake. I really, really like this movie. I used to not like. When I actually saw this movie in theaters. Okay, in 2009 was a great year because I saw Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees on the big screen in the same year because that was the year Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 came out. But I saw Friday the 13th, the remake in the theaters. I loved it. I watched it as a teenager, and for whatever reason, I didn't like it. And then all of a sudden, again, I love it again. I've seen it a few times. I actually watched it. Me and my buddy watched it the other night or the other week. Yeah, no, about a week ago. I went over to his house and we watched it. 'Cause he had never seen it, and he liked it. This movie does a lot of good stuff, and it's got a scary Jason. People get mad. Okay, he's got hair. So he's got long hair. I don't give a fuck. He looks like Jason. It feels like Jason. This is one of the scariest Jasons I think we've ever had. This is one of the most brutal Jasons. Jason is scary in this movie when he has a bag on his head and when he has the hockey mask. So Derek Mears, I think, is definitely one of the best Jasons. Derek Mears is phenomenal as Jason. Now I can understand people are upset that he holds somebody hostage and he has tunnels underground and uh, stuff doesn't bother me. That's what I would honestly. We didn't get told that in the original, but I would expect that honestly. And like I said, Jason Voorhees is not Michael Myers. Yes, okay, the less explained about Michael Myers, the better. I don't feel the same way about Jason. I think there's things I want to know about Jason. I want to know how the fuck he moves around, how he teleports. Which a lot of people accuse Michael Myers of teleporting to, which he never fucking does, by the way. Jason teleports all the time, and this gives a logical explanation for how he does it. The kills, every kill in this fucking movie is fucking gnarly. I think it's got probably some of the best kills in the franchise. My favorite in this movie, I would have to say, is man, that's a tough one. I really like I really like Trent's kill where he's impaled on the spike of the truck. And I really like when he kills the redneck that's selling pot, that tries to sell pot to Jared Padalecki's character. I do really like that kill. I like every kill in this fucking movie. I like the kill out on the lake where he shoots the dude in the head with the arrow and then fucking drills the fucking machete into that chick's head and pulls her up, and then her boobs flash because it's Friday the 13th. So, yeah, no, I think this is a great Friday the 13th movie. Literally, this movie's plotless. It's got a little bit of a plot. Dude's sister goes missing. He's going to look for her, kind of like in part four. But yeah, this movie gives you all the fucking Friday the 13th carnage you could ask for as a Friday the 13th fan. So I don't understand people's problem with this damn movie. I love it. All right, Friday the 13th, part 4, the final chapter, which is most certainly not the final chapter. As if it's not been made obvious enough, this is not the final chapter. Why they decided to call it the final chapter beats me. But from my understanding, I don't know, this is a rumor, but they never had any intention of ending it at this point either. I don't know if that's just a rumor that somebody made up, but that's what I've heard. That's kind of the word on the street. So that's even if that's true, if that rumor is true, and I'm not saying it is, don't quote me on it, but um, that's a very puzzling choice for a title. Now, this is most people's favorite in the franchise. This part six and part two are people's absolute favorites in the franchise. I really like this movie, and I would say it's almost tied for first. This movie, I would say, definitely has some of the best characters and has some of the best kills. This Jason is scary, and what I like the most about Part 4 is that Jason is kept in the shadows a lot of the time. He's kept in the shadows, and when he comes out, he's absolutely aggressive. That's how Jason Voorhees should be to me. It's almost this is almost this is the remake. This is almost like if the remake Jason existed in the original series. This Jason is just absolutely aggressive and he's scary. This is a scary Jason. Um, this is I think definitely the most violent film in the franchise. It's got the most carnage. There's sex, there's nudity. That's essential with the Friday the 13th movie. There's lots and lots of bloody kills, lots and lots of gore, which I guess bloody kills gore. I guess I'm just kind of sound like a broken record at this point, but I definitely really, and I'm not the biggest Corey Feldman fan in the world, but I think he's good in this. I'm not, like I said, I'm not his biggest fan in the world, but I think he's really good in this movie. And I'm not the biggest Crispin Glover fan either, so it was kind of nice to see him get a meat cleaver buried in his face. Which I shouldn't say I'm not the biggest. When I say I'm not the biggest Crispin Glover fan, I mean it doesn't mean I hate him. I just nah, I've never been that big a fan of Crispin Glover. But yeah, he gets a pretty nasty. He gets it pretty nasty in this movie. Um, well, I mean he gets to have sex, so that's he gets it nasty in that way, and then he gets a really nasty kill. Favorite kill has got to be the scene where Rob is actually in the basement, and then Jason comes out, and then and then Jason starts killing him, and then Rob emphasizes very very loudly multiple times that Jason is killing him. And what I mean by that is he's literally stood there saying, "He's killing me! He's killing me!" He's practically narrating his own death the whole time. And I a part of me thinks it's funny, but a part of me kind of finds it sad too. It's not. It's not. The kill is not funny. It's just I don't know if somebody was killing me. I don't know if I'd be actively screaming, "He's killing me! He's killing me! He's killing me!" Hey, in case you didn't know, he was killing me. In case it's not obvious enough, he's killing me. I'm dying over here. I don't know if that's how somebody being murdered by a hockey mask serial killer would vocalize and let everybody know that. I don't know if they would vocalize that they're being killed. I think screaming in pain is definitely probably more of a viable option. But Friday, like I said, Friday the 13th Part 4. I mean, it's ranked number 2 for a reason. Such a great classic slasher movie. All right, so in first place, for me personally, Friday the 13th Part 3 is my favorite. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, how could you have it over part two? How could you have it over part four? How could you have it over part six? How could you have it over the original? Well, this is the one that I grew up watching the most. This one came on TV. I own this movie. I'd seen all the other ones, but this one was just always my favorite. And I think this movie has the best characters. I think that uh, Chris is my favorite final girl. I think she's the most likable final girl. Um, like I said, I like all the other characters. I actually am in the camp that likes Shelly too. I think Shelly is actually a good character. Yeah, okay, he puts a lot of people off. People think he's annoying. I don't think he's annoying. I think Shelly's kind of relatable, as well as I think that all the characters kind of are. Even the two stoners. For those of you that smoke a lot of pot out there, you would sure as fuck you could relate to these two. I guess if there's one character, I don't want to say I don't like Rick, but Rick is definitely not the best actor. But Rick is all right, and I do like the bikers as well. I like all the characters in this movie, and my favorite character in this movie is Jason himself. Just this Jason is fucking vicious. I think I like this Jason more than I like the Part 4 Jason. This Jason I think is just way more vicious. He is just this is I think where Jason becomes really scary. Um, Favorite kill has got to be Andy's kill where he's doing the handstand and Jason comes out and splits the motherfucker in half through the crotch. Oh, it's such a gnarly kill. Oh man, such a gnarly kill. But Friday the 13th Part 3, I think has the most likable characters, has the best Jason. I think this movie has the best atmosphere. This movie is really atmospheric, and I think the barn. A lot of people like to complain about the barn. Oh, all Jason ever does is hang out in the barn. Yeah, that's fine. That's a fair criticism, but at the same time, I mean, what do you expect Jason to do? You think he's just gonna walk out in the open with his hideous face? And at this point in the film, this is before he gets his hockey mask. But this is the movie where he actually gets his hockey mask, and that's when he kills Shelly and he takes the hockey mask off of him. And that's the birth of Jason Voorhees as we know him today. So this movie started a lot of great stuff for the franchise. And like I said, it has the best characters. It has, to me, the best kills. It has a lot. You can say the 3D effects are bad, and I mean, yeah, they are, but they got a charm to them. Rick's death with the eyeball that comes bulging out of his head. It's got a charm to it. Um, I wouldn't say that this movie really should have been made in 3D because there's not a whole lot of 3D stuff, but I don't watch the 3D version as it is. But no, Jason to me, like I said, is at his most vicious here. Um, he's ruthless. He's an animal. And that's what I want in Jason Voorhees. I don't want Jason Voorhees to be a wimp, but I don't want him to be too OP as well, overpowered. I like that Jason actually gets hurt in this movie. Like, he gets stabbed and he gets an axe to the fucking head. This Jason, I mean, like I said, he's almost like a fucking like a mongoloid or something, and he takes a lot of damage. But man, is he ever resilient because he comes back stronger than ever in Part 4. But no, this Jason to me feels the most real Jason to me. And this is definitely my favorite Jason. And my favorite movie in the franchise. So yeah, that is it for my Friday the 13th ranking. We've been on here for almost half an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get off here. I don't want to keep you guys too long, so if you like the video, hit that like, subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Peace.